Jambo, habari gani? Nzuri sana. Kenya yetu hakuna matata. Let's go.
The war is over. 5 more times. The war is over. No war, say no war. Oh, the war is over.
I would like to invite Julius to come and introduce Informa East Africa, as well as welcome you, our guest. Welcome, Julius.
Here we have groups of people from different parts of Africa. We have Djibouti, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda. We have a bit of everyone. So Nigeria, you know. So I just want to say my journey, as Josiah explained, I'm a broadcaster. Let me start from the top. On a weekly basis, I have a radio show, Next Colorful Radio, which is weekly, Global Conversations. So we do get a lot of guests coming to talk about the things they do on a global platform. Then we have the Informa East Africa, which we founded with Josiah, and it goes way like 4 years back. And then in terms of my career, I'm starting to the top so that you understand why did I think about the newspaper. Having worked in the mainstream media in the UK, whether it's BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, or any other channel, they're constrained by the budgets. For example, BBC could be just given about 30 minutes, the program known as Focus on Africa, BBC Africa, to cover a continent of 54 countries. Now, 30 minutes, you can do that? You see, I'm from Kenya, but knowing how vibrant Kenya is, with people starting to be the fastest in running, that's a story. Others doing different things. It's a busy place for news. One country like Kenya can give BBC 24-hour big stories each day. I want to make a difference. I want to change. There should be a platform whereby you want to know what to say. Congratulations. Yeah. When we serve people, we say, well done. You know, when Kenya wins a global contract to supply Britain with Brexit materials, we clap. You know, life is more than what sometimes media structures it to be. So that's what moved me to think, let's have a platform. And this platform is Informa East Africa.
I would like to welcome Olivia. Olivia, welcome.
I am aware that racial relations in this country are very bad, and a lot of that has been informed by ill-informed or absent history. And I tried to work on a project with people in Kenya to understand what happened to that history and to try to bring it better into public consciousness in the UK. And now what I've discovered, also public consciousness in Kenya. Because what I didn't know, but what I know now, is that that narrative has been very much erased also in Kenya. And what we have discovered on the course of our research is a huge network of detention centres, works camps all over Kenya, emergency villages, places where people were detained for maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, moved around, treated to extremely egregious conditions. And we are now working on a project. We're a team half in Kenya, half in the UK. We have cultural researchers, archaeologists, people who are informed in history and historians, and we're working together to try to realise some of that history and restore it so we can better understand the way that our countries have engaged historically, with the aim of having better relations by working together and working through those narratives now together. We're only a volunteer organisation, we all have full-time jobs. I work on labour rights, other people work at the Science Museum, work at UCL, the Governor's Office in Nairobi, lawyers in Kenya, researchers in Kenya. We're just volunteers. We're doing what we can to try and make this history better known. We have done little bits of fundraising and done field work and engaged with veterans and made a documentary about Operation Legacy, which was at the end of the British Empire. The Foreign Office asked for all the colonies, 63 colonies, to wrap up their files and either destroy them by burning.
It was really interesting to note that the community, the local community, still are very aware of the purpose of these buildings, but this hasn't exactly been communicated to the students. And in a way, I think this represents the intergenerational gap in history where it's not continuous. So some of our historical narratives are not continuous. They stay with one generation and they sort of skip the next.
Historical documents, which is the history of Kenya, which is the identity of Kenya, which belongs in Kenya and should be accessible to Kenyan people and not just to British people who can go to Kew Gardens and engage in those kind of archives. So we see it as a mission of historical justice. We all work on issues of historical and contemporary justice and engagement and understanding. That is our mission. And we made a documentary about the removal of the documents, and that's kind of where we are today. We just had a team day to plan our next year and what we're going to do and how we're going to engage, and so that's just a bit about who we are and what we're trying to do to try and enhance that understanding internationally and between our countries, and we hope to do that in many more countries in the long term.
I would like to welcome David. Let's give David a round of applause.
For me, I grew up in Kenya, Nairobi, in one of the toughest slums in Kenya. Where I grew up, all we wanted to do as young boys was become a professional footballer. I got signed by a bank, Kenya Commercial Bank. When you hear it's a bank, you can think that we used to get paid fortune, which was not. We used to earn £4 a month. That was our salary. I ended up joining one of the biggest clubs in Kenya. I've played in the Africa Champions League. I've represented my country in under 17, under 19, under 20, under 21, under 23. Played with some great players when I was young who have played. John Obi Mikel, who's played here in the Premier League for Chelsea. But as life went on, life was not that easy, so I ended up joining a gang as well. So I was in a gang where we used to have machetes, carry guns, and I used to be the keeper. So what they used to do, they used to go and do the dirty work. They bring for me the equipment, I put for them. They pay me whatever they're paying me, and I didn't care what they used to do. Until one day when, in Kenya, some people know here, there's some places where if you're caught, they don't take you to the police station, they set your body alight. So that is what happened to one of my good friends. And at the same time, I was still playing football, not earning a lot of money. I was driving something called a matatu, which is like a bus here. But that was during part-time when I'm not training. I joined the British Army. I went to Iraq in 2007. And that time when we went to Iraq, that is the time my life started changing. So I drove over something called an IED. It was a 4-chained IED. I ended up losing 2 people in that vehicle. For me, I can't remember anything. I just found myself in the UK at Birmingham Hospital, where all other soldiers are normally kept.
I met my honorable friend, Julius, a few years back, and he introduced me to his work of art and what he does, which is Informer East Africa. I love anything Africa.
Jambo, habari gani, nzuri sana, Kenya yetu, hakuna matata.